Here, the SB2C Helldiver. Listen, love the plane because of its ungainly tail and where the rear fuselage is with the gunner navigator. It's an amazing piece of machinery, really hated by its pilots. Here we have overall view of the Helldiver. Now we're going to start with cutting out the fuselage first. To ensure proper alignment of the insignia, you see that the designer left the bar of the insignia on the tailpiece. We make sure to have that. We're going to cut out the join tabs also, really important. And we're going to align everything so we have them in order. Now, once we're finished with this, the first thing we're going to start doing is the cowling. Now, paint the edges and make sure we paint them in the proper color. This is important. Now let's go for the engine cowling. Very important here. We're going to build it a bit different from what the original designer proposed. Now we're going to cut off that tab. We're going to paint the edge. And then we're going to deal with the engine. We're going to cut the engine in two pieces. Reason being, the top half where it looks like a vent, we're going to divide it from the main section and we're going to raise it. So first, we put an extra piece on the top, and then we're going to put back the top of the engine tab. This way, it is now raised from the main section. We'll cut it out. We're going to then do the cowl in front, and then we're going to make a complex bend using our cake decorating tool. Once we get the shape of the cowling bent in, we're going to color up our engine plate and then we're going to put it in the front. Notice how flush it is at the top. That's what we want. Then we're going to just add the cowling for the main engine. Put in our joiner tab. Now once we put this in, we're going to make sure trim and cut so that way there's no resistance against putting it on the front. Look at this. Beautiful. Look how it comes together, so pretty. Love this. Great. Now it's time to deal with the forward end of the fuselage. Here now is where the engine bay will join the main fuselage. First, we're going to shape it. Then we're going to put cuts in where we're going to have to curve where that black area is. So this is what will mount onto the cowling where you have the radiator. So this is important. Now we're going to paint the engine cowling, and then we're going to build the rest of the fuselage for the main section. Here you see I'm putting in a little dent. That's for the pilot canopy. We just put in joiner tabs there. Listen, the more I read and the research I did on the Helldiver, I realized it's a beautiful plane, but the worst dive bomber that the Navy had during World War II. I mean, it had over 880 structural changes to try improve the model. And then they stick an engine in that was weak in the beginning, that could not handle the weight. So here you see we're adding the forward fuselage to the main body. And then we're dealing with the rear fuselage / gunner / navigator area. Same joiner tabs in. Lovely. Now look at this. You see, it's going to come together really nice. Now this is where you pay particular attention to. The trailing edge, what will take the rudder, we have to be very careful. Again, Google is your best friend. If you can look up how the general shape of the fuselage is, you're one. You have one. Here you see now I'm aligning the fuselage to make sure the stars and stripes match each other. And then we take our time to just glue everything in position. Put in a little bend there. Put in the former and beautiful. Look at that. Our Helldiver slowly coming into shape. Now we're going to add the radiator flaps, as I call them, and I'm sure that there is probably a better name for it. and then we're going to bend them slightly out. The little things we can do for realism, we do. Looking really good. Love the look. And now, let's deal with the tail section. Now this is one of the main characteristics of the Helldiver. The tail, we will never build flat. Once we cut all the parts up for the tail, you see I just lightly score the edges and then we fold over. Nice. Now we're going to put curves in the trailing edge and leading edge. Whatever we do, we're not going to build a flat tail. It must have that thickness to it to lend some sort of realism. And you see how I join both half? One at a time. Then we always press down on a flat surface to try to ensure that everything will remain straight. And even if you don't see me do it in here, always paint the edges once you're finished. Here I just put a toothpick in to strengthen the tail section, and then we join. That is one of the greatest characteristics for the Helldiver. Let's just deal with the stabilizer now. So this should be fun, quick to the point. Here we cut them out, and just like the fuselage, we're not going to build it flat. Paint the edges like everything else, and then we're going to go and form it so that it has its thickness. Once we get all of that done, we glue the top and bottom half, and we don't do everything. Do it in section. When you glue in section, you get a better alignment, and make sure you press against a flat surface so that you have it proper. Here now we're going to use our toothpick. We're going to bend it in such a way that we can get it in properly. That will provide two things: structural integrity and proper alignment. And then we just add our stabilizer, and that's it pretty much. Lovely. And now we come to the main wing panel. Now this, we take our time. We're going to do two sections. One here, I'm cutting out the, as you call it, the wing cord or the wing spar. This will give the relative thickness and a bit of structural integrity to the wing. We double we glue and we put aside. Now we're cutting out the wing panel. And just like the stabilizer, we're going to cut and keep some of the excess that we'll apply our glue to. So those will be our joiner tabs, so to speak. Put a little curve in the wing tip. Put a general curve in the wing panel and paint the edges. Now watch what I'm doing here. We're going to glue in sections the leading edge. First, the inner section we glue on the leading, and then we go outward. Glue in section, it really helps. And here we do the trailing edge. Again, we press against a flat surface. Now, the wing root, you see I'm going to slightly bend them upward. It does help. Now we put in our wing structure, the spar, to get that thickness. We put some glue onto the wing root and we attach in place. And this we do for both wings. Look at that. Great. Looking good. So let's add another little detail that's provided in the kit, the wing slats. So here we make sure we paint the edges of our wing just to make sure it's looking good. Let me tell you, doing this really adds to how your model will look at the end. Here we go, we paint up. Now, dealing with the wing slats, we're going to double it, press it, cut out, and then we're going to use, after we paint the edges red, we're going to use a toothpick to add a little curve. This is to imitate the leading edge extension, and then we're going to glue into place. Just show a little of the red below, so to help show that it's a bit extended, and it looks really good at that point. So let's deal now with the tail wheel. This is pretty much straightforward, except that you want to reinforce it. So once you cut the tail wheel out, we're not going to make it flat. Just like how we treated the stabilizer, just like how we treated the fin, we're going to reinforce it with a thin solder wire. fold over, and we're going to just apply a bit of glue and stick it on the lower part of the fuselage. Refer to Google for help. Now here is an addition that's not really called for, but it does add the exhaust. So here there are strips provided in the kit. This is what we're going to use to then form our engine exhaust. So if you follow along with what you see, you should be good. You notice I'm cutting only half of one side, or putting cuts in there, and then I use my cake decorating tool to then form the curve for the exit. And this is what we keep reinforcing. That's how I build exhaust. If you watch carefully, you can do your own too. And this will apply to both sides. So that's the exhaust shroud, I will call it that. Put the same on the other side at the angle you see. And then the exhaust we build simply using the scrap sheet, thin sheet, rolled over a toothpick. We just check to see it fit, yes. Then we cut. And then we're going to put it back on the toothpick and paint the exhaust the appropriate color. For me, I use rust brown. Paint the edges of the exhaust tube. What we're trying to do is to get rid of any white edges that's not on models so that it looks real enough. Use a toothpick to guide the exhaust points in, the exhaust tubes, and there we go. And then paint the inside. Great. Look at that, man. So now time for the landing gear. And just like other landing gear, we just take our time. We cut the main strut out. We're going to rotate this over toothpick because of the strength of the toothpick. Put aside, and then we're going to use solder wire. Now, my thing for straightening solder wire is just use a steel rule, roll it over, and it will be straight. We slide that over and bend accordingly to what we see in the 3-view drawings or any detailed drawing that you might find on it. And now, the landing gear fairing, the doors, if you will. Here we just double them, cut out, put a slight curve to match the lower chord, and then we're going to bend slightly. Doing this just like what the real model looked like. Glue the landing gear strut to it for simplicity. Then we build our wheel typical like how we do any other wheel for Fiddler's Green or any of the other over 3 dozen instructions provided on my channel of how to build these wheels. Simple, straightforward, and then we make sure do what? Paint the edges once we're finished. Add a little realism. This we just put into position. Paint the edges of everything. There we go. This now we can put in place, and pretty much that's what we have. Look at that. And now the prop. Now I built the prop already, but I'm going to show you pretty much what I did. We cut that out. We're going to not just double but triple the layer of the 120-gram sheet that we printed on to cut the prop out. Now once we do that, this is what you get. Once it dry, you twist the blade accordingly, and then we take the time to paint the yellow warning tips on your prop blade. And now let's deal with the key part of it, the spinner. The spinner is everything to this. Here now, we're going to do it just like what we did with the Junkers Ju-87 and even the P-51. Here we're going to form the curve, and once we glue this part, we're going to use our ballpoint tool to make sure that we get that compound curve in. Very important. Now remember, paper, just like sheet metal on a larger scale, you can curve paper if you have enough patience to form compound curve. Here now I'm doing the rear part of the spinner, the joiner tab. We're going to put the joiner tab onto the rear part, then we're going to cut it Bend it in a little bit after. Just push it in slightly. And now we can join the tip of the spinner on. Look at that. Beautiful. Then we're going to just mark the position where we need to put little cuts in. And then we just put glue and join. Look at that. Beautiful. And once we get that now, we're going to just cut a bit of a strip from the sheet that we have. We're going to just roll it and put it on the back of our prop blade. And this now we can put onto our engine. And just like that, we have ourselves a SB2C Helldiver. Thank you so much for just watching with me and building this. I really appreciate each and every one of you every weekend to see full length builds. And if you would like, please consider subscribing along with my incredible Patreon members and help me grow this channel. Without these Patreon, I know that I wouldn't be as far as I am. So until then, my friends, in a world that might be filled with chaos, be gentle to yourself and to each other. Respect each other, and above all, one love.